Agrowtek's GrowControl GCX series control systems are a flexible platform designed to manage all aspects of your growing facility, including environmental control, lighting, carbon dioxide, irrigation, and more. These systems feature free software, remote access, and many other intelligent features. Let's take a look at the new GrowControl user interface. Taking a look at the new interface, we can see that there's no longer a tab bar along the bottom of the screen. Our home screen now contains tiles for each of the different rooms. Along the top, there are a couple of buttons, as well as the current time and date. The left-hand side still retains the notification area for general messages and alarms. Each tile contains a status bar with the room name and a different color indicating the status of the room. Green indicates the room is in run mode. Red indicates the room is paused, as well as an icon. And yellow indicates that the room is in maintenance mode, sometimes referred to as spray mode. Each tile contains information about the particular room, including a crop name, if there are any alarms active, the photo period, whether it's day or night, the current stage of the schedule, which is a new feature, the day count, which is now broken down into week and day as opposed to just a day count, and finally, average temperature, humidity, and VPD data if it is available for the room. We can move rooms around by clicking on the heading and dragging them around to resort the order. We can also add rooms by pressing the plus button, which will bring up a dialog to add a new room. Clicking on a tile will open up that room. When we open a room, we can see three main tabs, which contain the dashboard, the devices in the room, and then the controls function blocks that operate in the room. At the top of the screen, we have the room name as well as the crop name. If we click on this area, we can edit the room name, crop name, copy a room, or delete a room. The run mode button at the top is how we can edit whether the room is in run, pause, or maintenance mode. Pausing the room will put all of the function blocks in pause mode so that they do not operate anything. Maintenance mode will put all the functions in pause mode with the exception of rules that are designed for maintenance mode. If you create a rule and select it as a maintenance rule, it will be allowed to operate in maintenance mode. We can automatically return to run mode after our maintenance period is ended if we specify delay time. Taking a look back at the dashboard tab, we can see an overview of our current schedule, our average climate readings, which is automatically aggregated based on sensors that are in the room, and then our alarm list if there are any alarms currently activated. Clicking on the schedule bar here will open up the scheduler editor. There are two different modes for using the scheduler. The traditional custom schedule, which can have different rules configured based on different date ranges, week ranges, and schedule dates. These rules are traditional and have not changed, with the exception of how the rule schedule is displayed here by week as opposed to just day number. The new Grow schedule allows the schedule to be broken up into 4 distinct periods: propagation, vegetative, flowering, and finishing. We do not need to use all the different phases if we don't need them for that particular room. If we're only doing flowering, we can only enable the flowering schedule. For each distinct phase, we need to specify the duration of that phase and then when we have sunrise and sunset. The schedule will progress through the different phases, and we can coordinate different rules within the function blocks based on what phase we are in. We can set the current week and day number by clicking on them at the top of this scheduler window. We can also adjust what phase we are in by manually selecting that phase in the drop-down at the top of the window. On our Devices tab, we can see the different components that are in the room. We can see the current live readings as well as statuses of outputs. If we want to get a historical view, we can click on the sensor or output device, and this will bring up the graphical view. We can select different ranges and other options for our graph view, just like before. Here we have also our device information tab where we can change the name and outputs. We have our alarms tab if we need to set high or low alerts for any of the different sensors that are on this particular device. If necessary, we can also calibrate the device. And finally, we can see factory information. If we want to go back and see more graphical data, we can click on the graph display here, and then we get a full screen graph with a cursor that we can drag across the screen. This is going to give us the instantaneous data that's coming from our cursor position, and then we can also see other data down here such as high, low, and average. We can page back through the data by pressing the back button, and this will go back as far as the controller has memory, which is typically 6 to 12 months depending on the device. We can also set the range that we are showing in our graph. Okay. We can exit out of this view by pressing the X in the upper right corner or by just pressing our Devices tab again. Bringing up something like a relay will show us our output history as well as manual overrides. And like I mentioned before, on our devices, device info tab, we can change the device name and then the output names, as well as other settings. Okay. The controls tab is where we configure our controls function blocks, just like before. However, this tab is, unique to each individual room as opposed to being a global tab. Selecting on a function block will open it up for editing. We have 3 different tabs in the function blocks, which are similar to the tabs in the previous version. Our first tab is our Rules tab, where we set up the different settings that we want the function block to follow as the room progresses through the schedule. Our Equipment tab is where we set up the different sensors, relays, and other options for that function block that it will use. And then finally, we have an Enable Mode tab, which every function block has, that allows us to set additional logic, such as enabling the function block only if a particular output is on, such as this one that we're selecting here. There are other options, but typically we would just set this to enabled, and our function block will be allowed to operate normally. The schedule view within a function block has also been updated. We can see that now there is an option for selecting the stage of growth based on the grow schedule. We can select the applicable stages that we want the rule to be active during. Like before, we also have a day range that we can set. However, now instead of it being set to a specific day number, it includes the week number as well. These numbers should be automatically updated correctly when you update the system. For example, let's say we had a day number starting on day 10. When the system updates, it should automatically show that as week 2, day 3. Likewise, we can also select to operate only by week number. So we could say week 2 is when this rule will be active. We could say that could be week 2 through week 3, for example. We can still also select specific date ranges if we like. To set a specific time range, we would select time range and then set a start and a stop. Otherwise, we can coordinate with the room's day and night mode by simply selecting day or night. This rule would then only be active during that particular time range. Finally, we can select specific days that we want this rule to be activated on. If we click on our Home button, that'll bring us back to our home screen where we can select a different room to explore. To access system settings and other advanced options, press the System button at the top. This brings us into the System menu. Here we have our traditional tabs that are normally found on the System Settings tab on the original version. We can access our network connection information, our email settings for sending email alerts, our data logs for exporting, system files for import, export, and backup, our user control, and finally our system settings. One additional button that we have at the top here is our Device Manager. Clicking on the Device Manager will open it up. The Device Manager has a list of devices along the left-hand side. Along the top, we can select individual rooms to sort by. We can find and delete devices. This is how we manage devices on the system, and it's also how you can assign different locations to a device. So if you want to move a device from one room to another, you can select a new device location here. You can also perform other maintenance tasks such as changing the device's internal address, replacing an offline device with a new one, or creating an average device. To create an average device, you would select the device that you want as your first device in the average. We'll select this climate sensor. We'll press Create Average Device. This will bring up a new dialog, which has added the device that we've already selected. In the drop down here, we have other sensors that are available and compatible to average. We have one other sensor that we can add, so we'll press Add. Now we have those two devices in our average. We can we can name the new device that we're going to save. We'll call it Average Sensor, Room 1, and then press OK. Once we save the device group, we will see it here now as a new device. This will be available now in our room when we go back to it. There are several other tabs on the screen, including an Agrowtek tab and a BACnet tab. The Agrowtek tab is for Agrowtek wireless devices that can be pointed to the system, including volumetric water content sensors. The BACnet tab is a BACnet Explorer, which can be used to find BACnet components on your network. It can show you which BACnet points are available on the system, and then you can later set up function blocks to write to these BACnet points. This concludes the tour of the new Agrowtek interface. We look forward to supplying many new updates and features to these systems as we continue to develop them.